parental rights with respect to sex ed curriculum in San Diego. She has gained a wealth of knowledge and experience by her numerous interviews and presentations on the subject, and is also a credentialed teacher and founding member of Concerned Parents of San Diego and RespectCulture.org. She lives here in the San Diego area and also has 2 daughters of her own. Would you please give a warm welcome for tonight's first speaker, Ashley Beaver.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so like Eddie said, I'm a mother of 2 middle school daughters. And, the topic of sex ed has been controversial, and people's opinions and thoughts on it are really all over the spectrum, right? You have parents who are like, absolutely not, you never talk about this with kids, you never talk to kids about this at school. Okay, well maybe you talk to them about it a little bit, well maybe then you do introduce, birth control and condom use, all the way to, well, you tell them everything and you teach them about pleasure as well. So the organizations that are promoting this new wave of sexuality and sex ed are way on this end of the spectrum. But they like to pretend like they're somewhere in the middle, because what they're doing is they are pushing the benchmark on what would be considered age appropriate. So this often is referred to as sexual health. Everybody wants sexual health, right? Regardless of how you view this. But what they're promoting is actually sex advocacy. And I'm going to show you examples through the curriculum. And a lot of this content will probably get an R rating, but you need to know this is geared primarily towards middle school, what I'm showing you, okay? And these slides are available at sdsexed.com. So, as an educator, I thought, hey, I'm going to go and seek out this curriculum. I had lots of friends tell me it goes like gung-ho in the 6th grade. We're not talking basic puberty. So I thought, okay, well, I'm a district employee. I'll go seek it out. I'll read it for myself. I'll be able to prepare my daughters for it. And so when I got access to it and I read it, I thought, wait a minute. No 6th grade teacher wrote this curriculum. This was written by maybe an adult bookstore in Planned Parenthood, right? And not only was it inappropriate, it was so poorly organized. I thought from a curriculum standpoint as an educator, the way that they introduced the topics, the way that they didn't first explain the vocabulary, assuming that kids may or may not know this stuff. It was very poorly written, very confusing. And so I thought, no, this is not your curriculum company that wrote this curriculum. And so here's a sample from 6th grade. They're telling our children, age 11, kids who are developmentally going from concrete learners to abstract thinkers, okay, that mutual masturbation is a no-risk STI. Bathing together, holding hands. They're equating holding hands with bathing together for our 11-year-old kids. They're introducing things that most adults don't even know what they're talking about. I didn't know what an oral latex barrier was, right? Why does an 11-year-old need to know what that is? They were saying that anal sex, using a condom, is a low-risk activity. According to who? The FDA does not even approve condoms for anal sex. That's a high-risk behavior, period. So then I thought, well, who is promoting this stuff? Where did this curriculum come from? And then that's when I learned about Advocates for Youth. Advocates for Youth is not a curriculum company. They are a DC organization that promotes policy, sexual and reproductive rights policy. They've worked very closely with Planned Parenthood and the ACLU, okay? And they drafted this free curriculum. It costs our district nothing. It's not values free either. It intentionally deconstructs values. There's so many times in the curriculum where it says that religious ideas are biased. Your parents, your religious parents are old-fashioned. And this is the part that I didn't get when I first read it. It says that you should avoid heteronormativity. Well, what is heteronormativity or heterosexism? That's the idea that sexual relationship, male and female, and limited to two. Okay? So that's what we're supposed to be avoiding when we're talking to children now. So here's Advocates for Youth, and here's some of their lobbying activity over the summer. Sex work decriminalization at every level. There's a ton of reproductive rights stuff. There's LGBTQ rights activism. And here, on the other side, is the president of Advocates for Youth talking about how, the UK's attempt to do age verification on free porn is senseless and silly. Is she a pornographer? I mean, in the UK, they recognize that pornography is a huge problem for youth, and they're really trying to do something about it. And she's saying that their effort to do that really doesn't make any sense. And so I thought, why is she partnering closer with pornographers and sex workers and abortionists? And then what do the experts say about porn? In the UK, the government says that kids who are exposed to porn, especially what's out there now, six times they're more likely to engage in aggressive sexual behavior if they're exposed to it. And then here, Gail Dines, you're wiring their brains in early adolescence. Free porn is the equivalent of hanging outside of schools and giving out free packets of Marlboro and bottles of beer. And yet Advocates for Youth think there's really no issue with pornography. They actually, if you do more research, you'll see that they promote the idea that porn can be ethically produced, and if you tell kids that it's fiction, that it's really not a big deal if they engage. And that's who was giving us our curriculum, and that's who behind a lot of the policy, okay, in our state. They create a cartoon platform called Amaze, and this is some of the content they have. This is supposed to be age appropriate for 10-year-olds. They don't define this lesbian sex act, ever. But if you Google it, you can imagine what content you'll find. And that's kind of what they expect and anticipate kids will do. So all of these organizations work together. Amaze, which is from Advocates for Youth, Answers, and Planned Parenthood, and they all create a large quantity of web-based content. So when I went to the Amaze videos that San Diego Unified was suggesting as an age-appropriate resource, I found this porn fact or fiction video. So I played it, and here's Julie Mellons. And I thought, this is definitely not age-appropriate. Then, what really bothered me was when I read in the comment section, because they didn't disable the comments, you had adults who were clearly predators, making disgusting suggestions. And here our school district was telling our children they could go there to learn more. Weren't they worried about our kids and predation? So I contacted law enforcement, and we did have somebody in law enforcement get involved. And so our district did pull that one link, but they left the others. And again, the Amaze comes from the Advocates for Youth, who gives our district the curriculum for free. Then I learned a little bit more about these organizations and learned that they write a national sexuality education standard. This is a K through 12 minimum content sexuality education standard. And San Diego Unified has adopted those. So right now, our district starts sex ed in the 6th grade, but the intent is that it goes to kindergarten. And up in Oceanside, Advocates for Youth did just that a couple of years ago. They introduced this in kindergarten, okay? And so these organizations that are creating that content are also now creating the standards. So this is kind of like having McDonald's and maybe Monsanto and processed food lobby create health standards, nutrition standards, right? This is healthy food, and then having one of them contract with the school district to provide food, their food, junk food, right? So these organizations, same thing, lots of money, lots of power, and what they're promoting is junk sex to our children. Not only is the content erotic and inappropriate, they tell our kids, because it's reproductive and sexual rights, that they have them apart from parents, that they have the right to learn as much as they want on the internet, that they have the right to leave school during school hours without parents knowing or consenting, that they have the right to not only get birth control and abortion, but if they're transitioning as a transgender, that they also have the right to go ahead and get your puberty blockers. If you want to take the hormones of the opposite sex, that's also an option. And in San Diego Unified, where they've adopted an extreme policy, they'll even hide the absence in the attendance record, okay? Where does it come from? You need to see the faces of the lawmakers who made this happen. Okay, we have Shirley Weber, and then we have Gonzalez Fletcher. Was it Gonzalez Fletcher?
Lorena, yeah.
Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, right? I think she dropped the Fletcher, I don't know. Anyway. So, public school and then public and charter. Okay, so the charter school piece is not mandated until this coming school year, but guess what? I've heard from several families in charter school that didn't know that the law had passed. Planned Parenthood is already in the school teaching it. Okay? And that's what happened in San Diego Unified. They really, kind of got it all out there under the radar so the parents wouldn't know. Jean, will you do like this when I need to be finished? Okay, so this is how teachers are taught. That orientation, your gender identity, your biological sex are all separate. So if you think and feel like you are a man or a woman or a combination of the both or none or just anywhere on the spectrum, then that's how you should be treated. You should pretend like you have a biological sex that's like that, and that's how you should be treated. There was an incident in Palm Springs where the girls' water polo team uses a local swimming area, right? They don't have a pool there at their high school. And the girls were done doing their training. They went into the locker room and there was a biological male in there showering. So all the girls ran out. They got the attendant to come in. So there's a man in the shower. We don't know what's going on. So the attendant went in there to address him and said, "Excuse me, sir, this is a female restroom. We have minors coming in to shower. You need to come out." And he says, "I identify as a woman." They left him in there. Okay? So these very complex theories of human sexuality are introduced to our children. The fact that this has just two people, we should be a little bit grateful for, because a lot of it also includes polyamory. And again, there's no thinking that you delay sexual initiation for a monogamous committed relationship like marriage, okay? It's once you have your latex, your lube, and sexy consent, then you're ready to go ahead and engage. When I read this part, I was so mad. We're not going to be referring to girls or as girls because you might be assuming somebody's gender. So instead, you should refer to them maybe as a person with a vulva. That is so sexually objectifying. When I read this my first time at the board meeting, I had never gone to a board meeting before, and that's how I introduced myself. "Hi, my name is Ashley Beaver. I'm a person with a vulva." And all of their faces were like, "What?" But this is okay for our children. There's quite a bit of role playing in the curriculum where they have them act out or role play through sexual scenarios, okay? Again, sexually objectifying reduces the kid's natural inhibitions, and it's potentially traumatizing. It's deep. The kids often talk about how embarrassing this is. so embarrassing. And if a kid has ever been traumatized or abused, then acting out these kind of scenarios is only going to make that worse. Could you imagine doing something like this at your work's sexual harassment training? Role playing out some sexual harassment scenarios? Right? You would get fired. Okay? In regards to birth control, it isn't comprehensive. All this stuff is called comprehensive sexuality education. It's not it's very, very biased, very one-sided. The big push now with birth control is to present LARCs, long acting reversible contraception, like your IUD, your patch, your shot, as what teens should be doing. Even though the latest study shows that if a teen girl is on an IUD, she's 60% less likely to use a condom. Okay, so riskier, she might not get pregnant, but riskier for STIs. They also introduced sterilization in the birth control lesson. Sterilization. They tell the kids, hey, you can leave school to do all of this, but not sterilization. That you have to wait until you're 18. This is in the 8th grade lesson. And then if you notice there, they equate pulling out, coitus interruptus, as effective as condom use. It's ridiculous. Now, are the kids going to get the message, I need to use a condom every time I do all of these things? Or, are they going to infer a couple of different things there? And is this really sexually healthy to tell children? Here, I'd like to introduce you to Woody. Now, let's remember, this curriculum is assumed parental consent. As a parent, you don't give consent anymore for sex ed. It's assumed. Children, minors, can't give consent. They can't give affirmative consent. They don't know the content. How can they affirmatively give consent to this stuff? When you have an adult talking to minors, making sexual innuendos like, look, this wooden phallic model, or the wooden dildos, what the kids call it. Woody is what they use for condom demonstration. You can just imagine how the kids are experiencing deep embarrassment, kind of what happens when they leave the class, how it's talked about. When Woody showed up on my daughter's middle school in the office, all of the adults in that office were so uncomfortable when I came in to ask to look at this. Now, why were the adults uncomfortable? Because they know it's inappropriate, right? And it's sexualizing and deeply unnecessary. The other issue that we have is you have the erotic content, you have the sexual rights message that you can do all of this without your parents, and then you also have supplemental materials. So if the curriculum isn't bad enough, they give kids access to the internet at school, and there's a whole list of websites they can look at. There's this book, It's Perfectly Normal, and that gives them the full catalog of adult sexual behavior. When I went to a parent training on this, or a parent presentation, what I was told was, we're not here to yuck anybody's yum. Meaning that what was once considered taboo is no longer considered taboo under the spirit of equality. I went on the news with It's Perfectly Normal. They had to blur it. They couldn't show it on the news. But yet, this is a book that's considered age appropriate for 10-year-olds. Both Planned Parenthood and the 3 R's curriculum, which are 2 of the major ones used in the state of California, use this book as their guideline, okay? And I have it here if you want to look at it. The resources, send them to all kinds. These are just some of the examples. Here's the hookup, where teens can, and children, because they're 11, can put their text-in phone number, and they will get sex and sexuality info texted directly to their phone. No parent knowledge, no parent consent, right? Sex Etc. is a website that's used a ton in all of the sex ed curriculums. You can look at it if you like. The thing I'd like you to notice at the top bar is Tumblr. Tumblr is an 18+ microblogging site. Apple dropped them last year because they had child porn. okay? They're known for porn memes, but because they had child porn, they were dropped from Apple. Then they said, okay, well, we won't put porn anymore. They've left all of their erotic writing. You can find plenty of porn on Tumblr still, okay? And then here, for 11-year-olds, Gay Men's Health Facebook page. What adult thinks that there is any wisdom in sending children to an adult's social media page? Why have they done this? Right? Don't they understand that predation exists? Not only is the content highly inappropriate, because it goes to things like hookup apps, basically, erotic movies that they can watch, and then what about strange adults contacting children, right? This makes no sense. And they are grabbing and reaching and doing these extreme things behind your backs, basically, behind your backs. And because parents don't know, and when they do know, they do nothing, then they're gonna just keep going. 6th grade, you can go get your condom from the nurse now. And not just a regular one, you can get a cute, colorful one. And if you need lubrication, there's some lubrication. And again, they'll send you to all those websites, okay? I asked the school nurse to do the condom demonstration, and she would not. She would not do it for me as an adult, but she would do it for an 11-year-old. Okay, so again, all of this stuff presents early sexual initiation as pure normative. If an adult is talking about all this stuff and showing all of this stuff, right, kids feel like, well, that's maybe what all my friends are doing. It creates a catalog of sexual behavior that kind of goes into their mind that was not there before. And again, it creates what I call a casual sex mindset, meaning that you can have a healthy hookup. And it no longer makes sex a sacred thing. It presents sex as a sport. And how's it working in the state of California? It's not. Our teen pregnancy rates are down. A lot of experts kind of say that has more to do with cell phone usage. But the STIs are through the roof. And that's because when kids engage in sex, they're engaging in more riskier, more recreational type of sex. And even though kids in San Diego Unified have had this type of sex ed for nearly 30 years, obviously not this aggressive, it's never been abstinence-based or abstinence-focused in San Diego Unified, they're using condoms less. Right? So the younger they give the condoms to the kids, it's going to probably be in elementary school soon. They're still not using them because they don't understand what sex is and what it means and how sacred it is and how complex it is. This curriculum never talks about the complexities. Nothing about your emotions, nothing about social, and nothing about spiritual. And it doesn't even leave room for spiritual. It attacks the spiritual component of sexuality. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. So where it is now is really bad, but where it is going is even worse. It is heading to elementary school for sure through the health framework that's coming out next month. And what we know is that kids want to learn this from their parents. They really want to understand what a healthy relationship is, right? I've talked about this content with my kids growing up because it comes up. And I know the boundaries that are appropriate. They can tell me as their mom, okay, Mom, I learned enough, right? But a teacher, that's not going to happen in the classroom. And it's values that really help you make wise decisions, not information and not this type of information. So as a community, you need to do your best to get informed, know what's going on, and use your voice. Right? Use your voice, stand in the gap any way you can. This is a lot of information. When I first learned about it, I was so angry. I was just mad, right? Just mad all the time. And now I've gone into the school district, and now I'm a disruptor, right? I do my best to disrupt it. And And so that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Get informed, activate, and do something. Okay, thank you.